For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon de Rehove. Helen Bombassis joins me in studio to discuss government's plan to reduce unemployment by 21% by 2030. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned in your article that the challenges facing government are not insurmountable, but they are substantial. What are the challenges, and do you think South Africa is tackling them sufficiently?
I think there are most definitely quite a few challenges that we are facing. However, with government's new policy, specifically Trevor Manuel's National Development Plan, is looking to increase the standard of living for most South Africans, along with eliminating poverty. It is a challenge that we can most certainly overcome.
How do you think South Africa can do that, though?
The National Development Plan basically says that they want to sort of increase employment rates by 11 million jobs. So that's one way of actually tackling and making sure that some of those challenges are actually getting addressed.
Now, how, in your opinion, can government ensure food security in South Africa?
We deal with a lot of the rural areas within Southern Africa. So there's a lot of land. So if the government basically takes and initiates a whole lot of agrarian reform, initiates a whole lot of infrastructure, making sure that there's appropriate skills development, appropriate education, empowering women, because what we are facing is a lot of women are working in the rural areas, and it's, in fact, if we look statistically worldwide, women are pretty much responsible for eradicating poverty in a lot of the rural areas. So a lot to do with agrarian reform, making sure that there's appropriate infrastructure and appropriate empowering.
You also noted that about 300,000 Africans leave the continent every year. What can governments do to make them come back to the continent?
Interestingly enough, that 300,000, we've noticed that a lot of them received schooling within Africa and a lot of tertiary education within Africa, but a lot of them did not have any work experience on African shores. The other interesting aspect that we've also noted that a lot of these people are sending a lot of their annual incomes back to Africa to support their families, but yet wouldn't consider coming back to the continent. Africa as a continent spends close to $150 billion in terms of getting expats to come back on shore to minimize that skills shortage. What we need to do is have more political stability, policies that actually empower people to be able to stay, creating those type of opportunities so it does look like it's lucrative for our fellow Africans to remain on shores.
Now, finally, do you believe that government's target of decreasing unemployment by 21% by 2030 is indeed a tall order?
It's most definitely an aggressive target. Their main focus is actually increasing job creation within the rural areas. Specifically from an adult perspective, it's close to increasing that by 29% of your average adult working in those rural areas. The challenges that we do face in order for us to meet those targets is a little bit of a stretch, and we need to really focus on certain initiatives and making sure that we are getting innovative, we are partnering along with government and the private sector to come up with creative initiatives in order to create those 11 million jobs and increasing the employment rate in Southern Africa.
Well, thank you very much for your insight, Helen.
Thank you.
That was Helen Bombassis discussing unemployment in South Africa.